Double standard. You can inherit Rome, Greece, and ancient Hebrew tradition, but I can't study Kemet? By Ru of House of Kheperu. You know I'm always receiving the same comment. You people aren't from Egypt. Interesting argument. So let me ask you something very simple. Are you Greek? Roman? Ancient Hebrew? Because if ancestry is suddenly the requirement for studying, quoting, identifying with, or building your worldview around an ancient civilization, then we are about to have a very uncomfortable conversation about the scriptures you defend every day. You are reading English words that reached you through ancient West Asian traditions, Greek texts, manuscript transmission, centuries of interpretation, and later European translation history. Yet somehow, none of that bothers you. You can inherit a tradition from people you never met, speaking languages you do not speak, living thousands of years before you were born, and confidently call it your faith. But the moment somebody studies Kemet, suddenly ancestry becomes the entrance exam? Come on now. You might want to think that argument through one more time. And before you start yelling Egypt, understand something else. The civilization we are discussing existed long before modern English speakers were calling that land Egypt. Ancient people of that land used names including Kemet. Names matter because names carry memory. And when later civilizations rename a place, future generations can inherit the later vocabulary while forgetting the older one. But here's where the irony becomes almost comedic. For centuries, people were taught to look backward at the spiritual traditions of Kemet and call them false gods, idolatry, paganism, superstition, darkness, whatever vocabulary made the old culture easier to dismiss. Yet apparently all of those alleged false gods were not frightening enough to keep anybody away from the land. Assyrians wanted it. Persians wanted it. Macedonian Greeks wanted it. Romans wanted it. Later Arab armies conquered it. Everybody had theological criticism, but somehow nobody had geographical restraint. That should teach you something about power. People can condemn a people's culture while coveting their land, wealth, labor, resources, knowledge, and strategic position at the exact same time. Those are not contradictions. That combination has followed empire throughout history. First, delegitimize the people. Then delegitimize their worldview. Then rename what they built. Then inherit what is useful. Then teach later generations to admire the conqueror while treating the conquered civilization as primitive. That is why language matters. That is why Ren matters. That is why memory matters. Because conquest does not always end when the army leaves. Sometimes conquest survives as vocabulary. Sometimes it survives in textbooks. Sometimes it survives in which civilization is called classical, which philosophy is called pagan, whose architecture becomes world heritage, and whose descendants are told they have no intellectual relationship whatsoever to what came before. And understand me carefully. Studying Kemet does not require pretending that every modern person of African descent is literally an ancient Kemetic person. That is not the argument. The argument is that human knowledge is not private property inherited only through bloodlines. If you can study Greece, quote Rome, follow ancient Hebrew scripture, practice ideas transmitted through Greek texts, and build your identity around traditions from civilizations outside your ancestry, then you do not suddenly get to build a racial fence around Kemet because somebody else's interest makes you uncomfortable. Either ancient wisdom can be studied across humanity, or everybody needs to surrender half the traditions they claim. Pick a rule and apply it consistently. And while we are here, ask another uncomfortable question. Why were you taught to despise the spiritual vocabulary of the people whose monuments, mathematics, medicine, architecture, political history, and civilization everybody still travels across the world to study? Calling someone's spirituality false never stopped an empire from wanting their land. Remember that. And here is the Kheperu proverb underneath the entire conversation. First, they teach you to despise what a people believed. Then they teach you to admire what their conquerors built on top of them. So the next time somebody tells you, "You people aren't from Egypt," smile and ask them one thing. Are you Greek, Roman, or ancient Hebrew? Because if you are comfortable inheriting ancient traditions through translation, interpretation, and thousands of years of cultural transmission, then maybe the problem was never ancestry. Maybe the problem is that somebody started asking questions about Kemet you were never prepared to answer. And that is fine. You don't have to agree with me. Just stop pretending your double standard is history.